Hey there. This week we're going to be doing things a little bit differently. I've been getting tons of questions about, okay, Mike, the market is shifting. We get that. We've heard you talking about that forever. What does that mean for me? Well, we're going to start answering those questions for you completely free of charge. In the corner here, you are going to see a telephone number for a market analysis. You can actually call one of our numbers and we will provide you free of charge with a market analysis on your home. So you can actually know what your house is currently worth, because your house is priced differently now, or would be priced differently if you went to sell it, than it was even 6 months ago. Things have changed that dramatically. So for today, if you want a market analysis, give us a call at these numbers right here. And these represents the regions which we are licensed: Washington, Oregon, and Oklahoma. Happy to provide you with that information, completely no obligation, free of charge, our gift to you, so you can know what's going on in this market, because there have been loads of questions. Now, I deal with a lot of these questions every single day, and I'm going to do our typical seminar. However, there's a different spin to it. We want to make sure that you are informed when you go to sell your house, or even if you're remotely interested in selling your house, of what you're getting yourself into, what you actually need to do. So these are the 9.5 things. You've heard some of these before, but maybe through a different lens. Maybe it's about what we're going to do. Well, this is actually what you need to make sure your realtor does in order to make sure you get your house sold properly, okay? Particularly in this very weird market. Interest rates, guys, 7.5%. We didn't think they'd go that high. I thought they'd settle in between 5.5 and 7. They're over my expectations. We are almost back to the days of the early 80s when things were 8% plus. So let's talk about some of the things that you need to get right in order to get a house sold in this market. The first one, as always, is pricing. Pricing, pricing, pricing. Number one thing, you want to price for location, you want to price for condition, okay, in the current market environment. I normally use something called a total market overview report. Those are way out of date at this point. They're great tools for a snapshot of the last 6 months, but things have happened so fast in the last 6 months to a year, they're completely out of date. I will still use them to price houses, but I also go back now every 2 weeks and reprice everything. So if you want that market analysis on your home with a number there, you're going to have a fresh number on that about every 2 weeks. We'll do it as many times as you like. Just give us a call. So the snapshot is important. The current market analysis is even more important. It's going to lend more weight to what you're doing there. Secondly is the timeline that you need to know in order to sell your house. Once you get your house under contract, 3 days, you want to make sure that buyer is actually turning in the earnest money or the contract's off. Roughly 10 days, you want to make sure that those repair negotiations are done. They're complete. They're taken care of, because otherwise it's going back and forth, and it's like a land deal with feasibility study almost up to closing date. And the deal can fall apart at the end if you don't have that dialed in. Lastly, closing. What is actually closing? Well, closing officially is when the deed transfers from the seller over to the buyer. There's only one entity that can do that, and that's the county. A lot of people think that when you go to the closing table at the title company, that's closing. It's not. It's when the county actually transfers that deed. Things can still fall apart, so make sure your real estate professional is hand holding that transaction to the very end. It's a very rough timeline. Number 3, you want to make sure that still photography is done right. I did a TikTok video. Yes, I am on TikTok. I did a TikTok video about if your realtor doesn't use professional photography and uses their iPhone instead, run away. I got a negative comment on that. I couldn't believe it. It was really funny. The guy said, well, my realtor says that iPhones are perfectly fine. Well, your realtor is cheap, okay? So make sure and use somebody that is going to actually pony up the money for professional photography. Fourth, video footage is huge, particularly now when buyers have more options. Inventory is going up, days on market is stretching out. And if you don't capture those buyers' attention fairly quickly, they're going to move on because they've got options. It's not like 2 years ago to where you could just throw out a price, hope for the best, and you probably were going to get it. It's not like that anymore. This market is very, very different. You have to compete for buyers now. And if you don't know what that means, listen to the rest of this seminar and we'll help you understand that. But one of the key things is video that will set you apart in marketing your house. And make sure it includes some drone video. You guys have heard my stories about this before. When that drone goes up, it's so cool. You can see the condition of the roof. You can see how clean the gutters are. You can see how close you are to the schools with that house. You can see how close parks are. You can see a whole bunch of stuff from a bird's eye view with the drone that you wouldn't necessarily be able to see if you're on the ground. So make sure and include drone footage in your video. Next, 3D tours, not necessarily mandatory, but by the way, this is number 5. I can count, I promise. Been a long day, not enough coffee. 3D tours, again, not necessarily critical, but helpful. And in a market where your house is competing against other houses, you want to be the helpful seller. Trust me on that. So make sure your realtor does a 3D tour to where they bring a tool in either themselves or they have a professional do it. There's actually companies online that will do this for the realtors. You come in, take shots of every room, camera spins around, upload it to the internet, and within about 2 to 3 business days, they bring you back a finished product of a floor plan of your house, both 3D and 2D. It's pretty cool. Number 6. Now I can flash that up. Number 6 is MLS representation. This has just gotten critical for people because if you are trying to take on those negotiations yourself, or if you have an inexperienced realtor that does not know how to negotiate, doesn't know timelines, doesn't work with a transaction coordinator, doesn't have years of experience, you're going to be in trouble in this day and age. And I'm not going to sugarcoat this. Deals fall apart, even some of mine. Now, not many, fortunately, but even some of my deals have fallen apart in this market just because buyers are not willing to pony up the way they were even 6 months ago. MLS representation is huge because you can have an experienced realtor that if you're out there on your own will take you to the cleaners because they know the documentation, they know the timeline, they know all of that critical stuff that you should know on your side. And if you don't know it, make sure and get some good representation to help you out with that. Number 7 is digital marketing. You are watching this video right now because of my digital marketing. Enough said. You want to make sure that your realtor is a good digital marketer, actually pays for representation on all of the major platforms, Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn. Yes, LinkedIn is also a good one. Google is another one. You want to make sure that it's out there. It's getting ad time and air time with the video to make sure that your house is properly represented and gives you a leg up on your competition. Now, I already kind of mentioned it, but number 8 is transaction coordination. You want to make sure that you've got a transaction coordinator on your realtor's team watching not only your back, but your realtor's back the entire time. That is absolutely critical. I have had as many as 12 houses under contract at one time. I will tell you, I did not get a good night's sleep during that entire time because I was up thinking about it. Now, I had a transaction coordinator, and fortunately, my transaction coordinator at the time was watching my back with all of those different timelines. You start getting 2, 3, 4 contracts on houses, you can't remember what you've said to who because you're working with multiple parties and multiple transactions. To keep all of that straight, you need good transaction management to make sure that your transaction is done properly. If your realtor doesn't have a transaction manager, ask them why. At least have the discussion with them. Now, number 9, what turns off potential buyers? Anything too divisive. You want to make sure that your house is as neutral as possible. If you've got walls that look like the exterior of a Mexican restaurant, bright orange, bright green, bright yellow. Hey, that's awesome. I love that. I also know I could repaint if I bought that house. But guess what? We're in a market to where we have to compete. Now, as much as I love all of those colors that I just mentioned, those are not neutral colors. Try a nice dove gray for the interior. HGTV has all of those colors on there. Make sure you get a color that's nice and neutral that people can see themselves living in. So avoid things that are too divisive as well. Unfortunately, our political climate, you guys have heard me talk about this before, our political climate is hugely divisive right now. Again, I post one thing on Facebook like, hey, I like apples. And you get a response back of, what about oranges? Educate yourself, right? Everybody's looking for a reason to be divisive. Don't give them that opportunity when you're marketing probably your biggest asset online. Make sure everything is nice and neutral. If you have furniture that is overly unique, you want to consider staging. We have resources for you so where you can actually get a stager in there and work with the pieces that you currently have, or you can hire that stager to contract more furnishings that's going to make your space look more neutral, and they can actually help you arrange that. So it's a very helpful thing. Now, as always, what's the half thing? What's the one thing that I have to absolutely do to make sure that my house sells and is competitive in today's market? You got to clean it. Pay for a deep cleaning on your house. When people come in, they should smell cleaner, not fresh baked cookies. I realize that's the old school realtor way to go is have something baking. Don't do that. You do that in Portland, Oregon, half the population's gluten free. They're going to pass out and think that they're dying. Okay. Don't do that. Make sure that it smells like cleaner. When people come into a freshly cleaned home, they want to stay. Again, the cookies, the baking, all that has now become divisive. The one thing that's not divisive is a clean house. Everybody appreciates that. Those are the 9.5 things that you as a seller really need to get right in order to make your house competitive. Now, this doesn't even include all of the paperwork and the myriad of things I could talk to you about that's done on the back end for the office, okay? If you want more information about that, or if you want a free market analysis on your house just to know what it's worth in case you decide to pull the trigger on selling, contact us at the numbers below. We'd love to help you out. Tanner Realty Group is licensed in Oklahoma, Washington, and Oregon, and we would be happy to help you in any of those states. Have a great day. Thanks so much for tuning in. This is actually going to be airing 7 times this week. We're going to be running this every single day at different times on different platforms because we want this information out to people to make sure you know what you're doing when you go to sell your house. Have a great day.